panels to join us here today, and all of you, of course, our valued LPs. We have a couple journalists and a couple potential LPs also in the room. It's a very interesting time when you think about AI. At Ventech, as many of you know, we've been in the market for 25 years. I'm the youngest partner, so to say, in the team with only 10 years of experience. You have a lot of enthusiasm about new technology, and I have older colleagues who sometimes say, hey, I've seen that. And maybe I've seen AI before, and maybe I'm a little bit skeptical. I think here it's a bit different. Like when I look into the faces of my colleagues, and when they try ChatGPT and other generative AI solutions, there's now some real excitement, some real potential that it could be a little bit bigger, than what we've seen maybe in other trends. Maybe it could impact us, all of us, in our lives in bigger ways than we can even anticipate right now. And I think we have the right sort of experts here, both from a portfolio side of very cool AI companies that use AI already for the last years, and then someone from Microsoft here who's very close to OpenAI for obvious reasons, and can tell us really where it's heading. They can look into the future in ways that are not really possible for the public. So maybe I'm promising too much, but you'll let us know. So I'm really grateful that we have this panel here today. We'll do the following. I'll show you 3, 4, 5 slides just to get us all on the same level, because I'm sure most of you have tried it, most of you have used it. We have to. Okay, I have to use the mic to be there. Where's the clicker? Just I don't. Thank you so much. So I'll show 3, 4 slides just to get us on the same level and mode. So is this the iPhone moment of AI? Well, that's kind of the question. If you remember the iPhone, before there were the Palm handhelds and these Microsoft phones at the time. Sorry, Philippe. And people were not as excited at that moment about technology. And the iPhone came around, and people started to stand around the Apple Store, and it was a real change in the adoption of the technology. And the perception today is that ChatGPT and generative AI could mean the same for us. The level of adoption is 1 million users in 5 days. And comparing this to other tech companies over the years, we just see like an incredible acceleration, right? Is that sustainable or not? I think we'll discuss this, but it's an incredible sign because it comes from a bigger, if we zoom out, from a bigger perspective. Because if we look at how technology is adopted in our society, we're now talking about software. We're not, like you see here, landlines, electric power, automotive, internet, tablets, and the cycle to adoption, you see it in years here on the scale, becomes shorter and shorter. And now we're talking software, and software is easily accessible in all the products you use every day. It'll not take us, before we were talking about 5 days, it'll not take us 5 days, but it'll take us maybe a year or two, and in core software products, you'll see the technology evolving in most places. That's my bet. I'm curious what the panelists think. And a little bit background as to what's happening behind the scenes, so to say, with these models. You see a lot of names here, more data, more compute, more algorithms. That's what's happening. And you see a chart on the left that shows parameters from top to bottom. This is a logarithmic scale, so it goes from 100 to 1 billion to 10 billion, 100 billion, 1 trillion, and then the years. And you see the models, how they come into the market. And the amount of input, so to say, to make it very simple, just goes up and up and up. And it's if I make it really simple, it's as if you put the whole knowledge of the internet in your pocket on a stick, and this is now what drives the AI. It might, and what's also interesting, a couple of weeks or months ago, it still talked to you like a child, and now it already passes the entrance law exam, in the US. So we're on a pace, again, that it's kind of exponential, so it makes me very bullish about the potential adoption. So last slide, and then we'll get to the panel. I mentioned four names and 4, so to say, terms that the panelists might use, and I just want us all to be on the same level. I asked ChatGPT how to explain these in easy terms, so not to use any software terminology. We talk about, maybe transformers are being mentioned. Transformers, ChatGPT 4 tells me it's a tool for reading or creating text by finding patterns in language. Generative AI, software producing new content like text or images based on learned examples. LLM is a large language model, which is what we were talking about before. All these names were large language models on the chart. Understanding and generating text using a vast amounts of knowledge. And then I mentioned something new, which you might or might have not seen, but it's part of what is just coming, multimodal systems. Multimodal systems are AI systems that analyze and combine different types of data. So text, images, audio, and what it very simply means is ChatGPT 4, you can now give it an image and it'll give you text about what's in the image. And it could also, probably in the next generation, produce you back an image, because there's different sort of models. And we're getting to this moment where all of this converges, and maybe very soon you have a robot standing in your room being able to interact with you completely, multimodal into the real world on all senses that we have. Let's get to the panel. So Philippe, I'll start with you. You're the Chief Technology Officer and Cybersecurity Officer at Microsoft. Microsoft France, ExCo member, and I think Microsoft needs no introduction. I think what's really important is that we mention the strong involvement of Microsoft with OpenAI. That is the owner behind ChatGPT. And I think through that relationship in Bing, you've already seen the newest version, so to say, and very nice. And maybe a warm welcome to Philippe here in this context. We have Harald Nitschinger, who's the co-CEO and managing director of Prewave. Prewave is an AI software company for the supply chain, providing insights for disruptions, but also all sorts of ESG risks. And you're also the CPO, so you're kind of having several hats today. And I'm very interested in your views today. Also, warm welcome for Harald, please. Then we have Melissa Sefati, co-founder and CMO, Chief Marketing Officer at R2In, an AI-powered marketing solution for small businesses, AI-based content generation. So you did AI content generation before it was cool, so to say. And you're helping in social media management and review content generation, right? Okay, warm welcome for Melissa, please. And Mikhail Dubov, co-founder and CEO of Chatamel. Chatamel is an AI unified customer intelligence platform that empowers customer experience, support, and product teams to see their customer reality, delivering retention, driving, loyalty-inducing experiences to their customers. Warm welcome for Mikhail, please. Great. So maybe if we start, what is your perception of? If we start with you, Philippe, I mean. What's your perception, coming into this with this news? How's the world changing? How do you feel about it? Maybe we can give you one of the mics. Thank you.
Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an exciting time. I've been working on AI since the early 80s, so more than 30 years now. There have been, winters and summers. This is a hot summer. And it's going to stay, I think. So it's a game changing, and it also puts a lot of responsibilities on all of us on thinking about how to use those solutions in a responsible way, and think about the future of all of us in using those kind of services. But it's an amazing time.
Okay. And Melissa, what about you? Like, the machines are taking over. What's the perception in your business and your personal view?
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, on my end, I think the first thing, personally, I'm starting 30 this year, and it's the first time that I'm in the middle of a breakthrough, because we started in 2016 when AI was a buzzword. Now AI is a real hype, and in the office, everywhere for us now, it's a pool of creativity, excitement. Everyone uses ChatGPT, from the HR manager to the customer success to obviously our data scientist team. So me being part of it currently, it's very fun. And in terms of business, I think the way you can think about it for us is we started in 2016 with this vision, AI will transform content. In 2016, it was the beginning. It was not exactly the case, it was the beginning. It's like, when you buy a car and you have to wait 6 months, a year before you get it. Once you get it, you're so excited because you waited for so long. For us, it's been 6 years that we've been waiting for this to happen. So it's a game changer because we're going to be able to produce a content. We went from a curating article, now we're going to be able to produce personalized video, unique for each client at a level that we were not able to do at all before. We can automatize code, so our developers are much more efficient. We're reducing our cost. So it's going to be game changer in terms of process efficacy internally and in terms of the service that we can provide to our customers.
Great, thank you. And Michael, what about you? Maybe you can directly jump into how you use it even today.
Yeah, I think we had a very similar reaction to Melissa, and we see exactly the same thing at Chatterman, where everyone, very much including myself, is using these new tools for lots of different things, or trying to use them, and sometimes finding the limits in certain places. But yeah, generally, I would say, very similar experience. We started also in 2016, also had a vision for AI will deliver a solution to this problem of understanding your customers and designing business in a customer-centric way. But the key part of that was always sort of a dream where, you talk to a lot of companies and you tell them, our system can show you these amazing insights about your business, and they say, yes, great. Okay, so what do I do with it? And let's say recommendations about a specific business, if you are not an insider, was always really, really difficult. You would need to spend a lot of time of some of our best people, and still they would sort of not always be able to do it. And now with ChatGPT or similar technology, that actually is possible. So in a sense, you kind of think yes, something that was a dream 5 years ago that you would talk to investors about, and you say, this will eventually be possible, but we don't actually know how. Today it actually is, and you can actually see the path to doing that. So yeah, we are working on exactly that. But also we find that some of the most amazing use cases are actually kind of not in our product necessarily always, but also just inside a company. So you could build, of course, content. We use help customers, so customer support, I think, is one of the best use cases for this. And even for coding, I started as a coder. I don't really code anymore, but recently built a service that we use in Chatterman internally, using more or less ChatGPT, interacting with it as an assistant essentially with me, and it works amazingly well and saved us quite a lot of money. So yeah, it's very, very actionable stuff.
And Harald, what about you? What's your first experience, and how does it impact maybe the company already today?
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing that we're thinking about is okay. Is it hype or is it real? Yeah. And I think many of you might notice this Gartner hype cycle, where we have the peak of inflated expectations, and immediately afterwards the valley of disillusionment. Yeah. And then the plateau of productivity afterwards. Yeah.
So where do you think
we are? And where are we? Yeah, and I was kind of thinking this through, and I, relating it back, I spoke to the CTO of Uber 5 years ago, and he told me, yeah, self-driving cars, in 1 or 2 years we're there. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And then it turns out with many technologies, there's this, it's easy to get to the 80%, but the last 20% to get real use case adoption take years, because that's where you have to be almost perfect. But then, if you relate that back to this case of generative AI and large language models, they're different than self-driving cars, because in self-driving cars you have much more limited data and you have hardware, and those are always limiting factors. And here you have basically almost all software, and you have all the data of the internet available to train these things, and that's why I think it's different in this case, because this is now where we're seeing that a use case that maybe where 3 months ago you thought, okay, it's hype. Yep. 3 months later, it's no longer hype, and all of a sudden this thing passes the bar exam, and just the speed of improvement is just there. So that's why I think the hype is real, probably not in all use cases, but I think we're seeing like the emergence of a new platform here, and it's going to impact, I think, SaaS companies broadly and various industries, and we are looking at it closely. Maybe last sentence, how we are currently using AI at Prewave. So currently we're using one of GPT-3 or 4's small brothers. You had it there on the chart. It's called BERT. Yeah, it's one of the like. And the thing is that we are processing millions of data points every day, so we cannot use these APIs because it would just it's just too expensive, and we cannot run these GPT-3 models because it costs us 24 graphic cards, which is again hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there we are not yet there. But there's probably other use cases, and of course the cost curve will also come down over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick up I think that's cost is a very interesting topic, but maybe we take the topic of being, are we 80% there, and how do we get to the next level, Philippe? Maybe what's your view on that? Where do we stand from an insider's perspective, and when do you think we'll have that robot standing in our home and doing everything we needed to do?
I think the big change with those models, and we call them foundational models. So it's a large model, but it's a foundational model, meaning that since the beginning, AI models were tailored for a specific business domain, like financial services, or even retail banking, or investment, or wealth management, and specific use cases like classify risks or detect intent on the conversation with the customer. The new models are multi-domain and multi-use cases enabled. So, and then it's up to the user of the model to prompt the model, to guide the model, and decide, okay, let's act as a wealth manager expert and tell me about a good use case, and draw me the data tables that would allow me to code an interface with a customer for a buy transaction. And that's actually a test I did, and you get all the results, and there are good results, and it adds the market value and the risk information in the table. So it's the second thing is that those models master language, master natural conversation. They've been trained on a huge amount of data, and then they learn they modeled statistically, it's the statistical model. They learned about the link between the different languages, including coding, because coding is a syntax, vocabulary, and grammar, it's like English or French. And neuroscientists published a paper a few days ago on looking at why people are so confident in the by default on the results of these models. It's in fact because usually when you simply ask a question, you use your own vocabulary, language, and then these models would kind of mimic that, respond in French if I'm asking in French, and use my kind of vocabulary. So it looks like it's me answering to me in my mind. So it's closing the gap between, think about all the other old user interfaces when you ask something and you get it in another language or with not the vocabulary words you are used to. It takes time to think about the answer. And unconsciously, with those models, you are really having a conversation. And I've been talking with a lot of clients in the past weeks, and I found experts in very different industries telling me, I'm having an expert-to-expert conversation with that model, really. Investigating complex things, and so it puts responsibilities on the user, because then the user is the one who is going to guide and ask the right answer. But it's kind of amazing the capability of the model to behave on behalf of someone. If you want to do something very simple, it's explain me that software code for. Actually, I did it for a very old language. On the financial services, very simple function. You know, you get an amount, currency, and then you in the function you compute the VAT, and then you get the sum of it and you return it. I said, okay, explain me that for a boy or girl of 8 years, taking the analogy of the money pocket. You know, so we would say the program is like when you put your money in your, you know, whatever, a pig or and then explaining with simple words how it works. So two things, I think, multi-domain, multi-use cases on one side, and the natural language conversation on the other side. So that's why we are seeing so many use cases and companies starting using it, and new startups.
Yeah. And I mean, the objective is to bring us, you know, in that discussion, are we in hype or not? Maybe, Mikael, yesterday at dinner, we've been talking a little bit about maybe where we're not at 100% yet. Maybe you can give a couple person examples of where you think what needs to be done to get to 100% or...
Yeah. So I think Harald's point about 80% of self-driving cars is really interesting but the difference here is like we are with ChatGPT or other technology somewhere around 80%. I would say maybe even less. But with the self-driving car, you want it to be 100% because otherwise you die. With this technology, you don't need it to be 100% because let's say if you're, and no offense to journalists in the room, if you're writing an article, you can then read it, edit it, and then publish. You don't have to just say the bot published it. So 80% is really, really good, or even 60% could be amazing in a lot of these tasks, same as like writing code. And yeah, but there are limits. It's not doing everything super well. And a couple of days ago they released a new version, GPT-4, which was supposed to be much better. And I used it to edit some of the code that I wrote and asked it to improve the code, make it more performant, and it gave me answers that were completely wrong in that case. So there are limits, and you need to be able to test it and understand that it's wrong in that case. So I would be very careful about kind of using it blindly, especially in situations where you have high stakes. So yeah, driving would be one of them. I wouldn't yet listen to it as a doctor or a lawyer on something really important. Yes, you can still. Yeah. Writing adventure memos, I think, is a really good use case, but you then need to read it and then think about it. So if you did something like that, then I think you do really well. But yeah, relying 100% on something like that, and unfortunately, the way this technology works, and I don't know if we want to go into that, but the models are really smart in some sense, but they're also really dumb in other senses. Like what they do, and Stefan had this slide with like billions of parameters. What that really means is like it's running like billions of really, really simple equations on words and trying to predict the next word. So it doesn't actually have any understanding of the world or how things work, kind of logic. And so you can sometimes have these really strange conversations with it where it gives you an answer and say, are you sure? And it says, oh no, and it completely changes its mind on something that's like fairly simple, fairly kind of, it's a fact. And you say, oh, but my wife disagrees with you, and she's always right. And then it says, oh, I'm sorry, and it changes the answer completely, right? So these things unfortunately still exist. It's getting much, much better, and I think it will continue getting much better at doing those things. But there are limits, and sometimes these limits are very hard to perceive if you kind of don't do your own research, if you are not an expert in that topic.
Do you want to react on that, Philippe? I mean,
no, I think it's really true. It's a generative model, so it's guessing the next word, and it's picking up the next word in the list of the top, best guesses. So sometimes it's going in the wrong way. So it's not to be used, I think, in fully automated processes like we are comparing with the automated car. It's something we call the co-pilot. So you need a human in the loop, like a second line of defense or third line of defense. So it would be assisting humans, giving information, helping to structure information, helping to make decisions. But at the end of the process, there should be a human looking at these informations, like you would do if you are talking to someone, even the best expert on the earth. You would think about it before applying it or acting. So we need also, I think we need to educate people to understand the limits, because it's it seems so magic. You may think it's the truth. Also, if you ask silly questions, you get silly answers. So people need to be educated at how to prompt a good question, give good guidance, give good context. If you don't, you get what you deserve.
Just one example. So of course we played around with it and we asked it, tell me 3 startups that are like Pre-Wave, so our startup. And it came up with an answer of 3 completely made up but completely convincing sounding names right? And if you would show that to my grandma or to my mother, she would say, oh, interesting startup, so I'm sure this is a real answer, yeah? Of course, as a domain expert, you know it's bullshit. Yeah? And this is, I think, a danger where it's not quite clear where to draw the line, yeah? But, yeah.
And Melissa, if I mean, you've been with your company generating already. I mean, you've literally generative AI was part of the value proposition when we've invested. How do you think that compares? What does it mean as a consequence? You know, that now this technology is more widely available to others as well.
Yeah, you can take it both ways. I think the first thing, it's we built basically a strong couple of things. I think one, and that's what was said here, is to make a good use of it, you need to have experts. And ChatGPT, and it's fun, everyone can use it, and it has, as someone without a tech background, you can use it, but if you want to take full advantage of it, you still need data scientists that are going to take a full advantage of the solution. And that's what we started with, our layer of data scientists that worked with solutions that were not as proficient as ChatGPT, or GPT-3, GPT-4. And now currently, this layer that we added, we're going to be able to go much deeper in very concrete terms. Things that what we were doing in terms of content, we were producing content, we were reading the internet and analyzing articles based on, you have a real estate agent, he tells us he works here in the 8th, and he only sells houses, he doesn't rent houses, and he only sells to luxury clients. We know that, and we're going to screen the internet and publish articles for him. We're going to be able to extract facts, but we have our own way to extract facts, and we match this fact to an image. With this actually requires, it's our own models. ChatGPT is going to be, it's going to enable us to go one step deeper. We won't be able to just extract facts. We're going to be able to rephrase completely an article. We're not able, before that, to rephrase an article and to make it look like that the real estate agent actually wrote it. We were not able to use tone. So if you want to have a much, want to appear fun versus serious, you were not able to do this. You can you can use ChatGPT to give this sense of personalization. In terms of local, you can go much deeper. So this is the first part where you can use it. The second thing is when we say we can automatize code. There are a lot of things that it can actually help us structure data and reuse the data in an informatic structured way that will enable us to create content based on the data. Take a stupid example, if you look at tons of data on the internet, they're all structured differently. If you want to extract it and to create a structure that you can easily use to then recreate a post, let's take listings, for example, real estate agent listing, they appear on Sologer, they appear on their website, they appear on many different types of websites and in many different forms. You want to extract this data and make it look beautiful with beautiful images, you want to write a post, but the data is structured very differently. The way the price is written somewhere, the way the picture is put somewhere, it's very different. And what GPT-3 does, it enables us to extract all this data and to structure it in a way that we can use it very simply to then reformat it and post it on our real estate agents' social media. So these are things that if our engineers were to do it, it would be very complicated. We would need to write specific code for each website. It would be very long. And with this new technology, we can do it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We're able to offer this type of service. That's a game changer part.
And you mentioned one aspect here that is data, and the data that you get and then feed into ChatGPT to create the connections in that data. I love investing in data because it's an interesting asset if you own it and you can resell it. We were talking about that also earlier in our meeting. Harald, how do you think about data in this context? Because that's the one thing that maybe your business data is maybe the one thing Microsoft doesn't have yet, and that's maybe that protective barrier. I'm a bit provocative, but I think that's interesting. How do you think about it?
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm thinking mostly about with regard to this topic is what are most B2B SaaS companies? Taking some kind of structured data from the enterprise, combining it with some other, sometimes transactional data, big data, building some dashboard on top of it. That's basically B2B SaaS in most cases.
That's a bit harsh for maybe some of them, but okay.
There's an entire industry of business intelligence and data analytics built around it, right? And I think that's where I sort of see what does this mean for user interfaces going forward? How does the customer and the user interface with that information? Yeah, because we spend so much time on structuring this data, and supplier data is structured, and we combine it with risk data, and then we show some flashing light in the UI. Yeah, and then we show, here's a highlight, focus on this. If ChatGPT-4 or whatever could simply give this information proactively, because they have understanding of the structured data, which in some cases is proprietary data, combined with some public data. They could even look up on the internet what's going on. I think this could be potentially revolutionary to the way, especially enterprise customers, interface with those types of services. Yeah? Basically getting an assistant that notifies them about what they should be aware of, and giving them the conclusions they actually want. And the conclusions, they're sometimes digging around for hours in some SaaS or analytics software to get to. Yeah? And I think that uses proprietary data, so that cannot simply be replicated by any startup. Mm-hmm. Yeah? But that's, I think, how B2B SaaS companies in particular, I think, will potentially evolve going forward.
I try to translate this to my very simple mind compared to yours. That means I can ask a natural language question in a box or with voice, and your software, basically using maybe the ChatGPT API, can give me the answer without clicking into your tools, right? Like it's a complete abstraction of the UX. Yeah. in a natural language. Yeah, I ask a question, I get the answer. I don't have to open the app. I don't have to.
It's like any user who opens our app today opens it with one question: where do I have risks in my supply chains, or which suppliers do I need to diversify? And we are building all these visualizations and things to give him this answer. If this chatbot, let's say, could just provide him the answer based on the understanding of the complete picture. So I think that could really be a game changer.
I think something that could make it clear, because for me, I'm not from a tech background, so for me, something that was very, that makes it very clear is when you think about this technology, ChatGPT, GPT-3, what they do is they create a base. And they're a generalist model. They create a base, then what we will see, I think, in the future, are specialist models that then are going to come up and use this generalist model that was based on ChatGPT. So if I take a very simple example, because we know them well, we work with them. If you think about Dalloz, who writes content for lawyers, right? What you could think tomorrow Dalloz could do is they could use the base, which is ChatGPT, GPT-3, which can analyze language, etc. They could take all the data that they have, because Dalloz has all the data about the new laws and all the laws that were created in France from I don't know how many years, and give it to ChatGPT. And then, but that would create their own model, the Dalloz model. Then you won't have to read this awful Dalloz law book. You could go on ChatGPT, you can go on the Dalloz GPT model, and you will get all the answer. And that could change the business model of Dalloz, and that would be a specialist model, a law, your ideal law, I don't know, lawyer. And so that's the idea of a generalist model that is created by OpenAI and its competitors, and the specialist model that all the startups and or big companies are going to be able to use and create their own specialist models to go deeper in the value proposition. Hopefully at least for me, that made a lot of sense explained that way, so hopefully it makes sense to you.
And Philippe, I think there's a very interesting aspect from your point of view as to how you're enabling that, because I think the API expects this, as far as I understand the new standard. It really expects use cases from companies to be involved in that. Maybe you can explain that a bit to the audience as to how the product will evolve in that direction.
Yeah, so first, it's been years we've been putting some what we call responsible AI frameworks, and we have a responsible AI office, and I'm heading the responsible AI office for France. So in each country, in each region, we have people in charge of that, and it's been years already within our engineering tools. It's about when you want to access these kinds of models through the Microsoft Cloud, you have to fill up a form because you have to tell what would be the use case you are looking for, what kind of model are you looking for, and we are going to check if the model is consistent with the use case. I don't know if you want to analyze text and you ask for getting access to the model that generates pictures, then of course you won't get it. And so we are analyzing the risks behind the use cases. So there is a list of use cases that I would say go easily through the process, and there are use cases that go to another process or maybe another escalation. Like if you want to do, I don't know, facial recognition, that would highlight, the high risk, and then go up to even not giving you access to the application. So that's the first thing. It's really, and we are applying that to all projects. Could be proof of concepts or production ready with clients and partners. The second thing is that we are encapsulating the like if we take the example of OpenAI models, we are encapsulating them in a production-ready environment, a hyperscale cloud, but also putting data security, data privacy, data compliance, and those responsible AI processes embedded around as layers around the model. So if you go to the OpenAI interface, you can access the model, but be aware that anything you are writing in there may be read by the OpenAI team because they are using it to enhance the model. So don't put any private or sensible data in there. If you are using that in Microsoft Cloud, you know that there are ways of we are protecting these informations. No one else can see what you are typing in. The data, the metadata stays in the region where the system is deployed, in Europe, for example, to be compliant with the EU regulation. And we are applying things which look like content filtering. Remember the early days in internet, anyone was trying to access anything, and at some point there were content filtering saying, oh, you can't access that, it's too violent, I can't give you access to that. So we are doing the same, and so it's an automatic process, looking at the prompts and the results and seeing if you are breaking or not the policy. Could be the general responsible AI policy from Microsoft, or could be breaking your own because you said I'm going to use that in that specific use case, and the automatic screening system is saying that you are trying to escape from that use case. Then you need to fill up a new form and ask for being granted. So it's very important to encapsulate and check and protect, of course, the data and the information that's going put through the, and it requires a lot of infrastructure. So that's where we invested a lot and developed a supercomputer to be able to train those models. The magic with the new models is, I think, so far. So I've been working in AI for decades. I didn't find any reason up to now, and I'm thinking about it every day, to fine-tune a model like GPT. The new way to fine-tune is to adapt the prompting. And we say prompting is the new programming. So the way you are guiding the model is the way you used to do in programming or fine-tuning. Fine-tuning costs a lot. Those models are huge. Adapting a text in a page, to guide the model is much easier and less costly. And so that's what we are doing. So we are infusing these solutions in our own solutions, and you'll see more if you look at the Satya Nadella's talk at 5 Paris time today. A lot of great things to see. But we already showed, for example, that in Power BI, as we said earlier, you used to have to know how to script, to get a nice dashboard. I want the list of companies I'm working with who do turnover between that amount and that amount for the past 6 months, etc. Now you can type in and just say that, and even if you have a translation, you could even voice it, and then you get the dashboards. And I don't like that color. Give me the back a year and not 6 months. So you're going to see more and more in Viva Sales with a CRM system, Microsoft or Salesforce or whichever. You get a button, and then you look at the request from the customer. It goes to the data in the CRM, and then propose again a written text with the words of the customer, asking and giving the discount which is agreed in the company for that specific customer. So you'll see more and more. And 2 days ago, if you updated Edge, and if you're using Edge, you have the Edge Copilot, which now is the Bing power on site of Edge. So you'll see more and more of those. But it's important it's a different way to use and think, even at the data scientist level, this kind of model.
If I move the chair a bit around, Michael, when you think about ChatGPT as a customer, there will be potentially competitors eventually from other big tech players. What's your thought process regarding make or buy, or using BERT in the past? You could have just deployed yourself, right? Like many people did, you probably including. And right now it's not an option. But what goes through your head? I mean, how do you make that decision? What do you feel comfortable with today? What maybe needs a bit more convincing and time?
I think it's no different to any other technology, right? You used to sort of think about the cost and can you actually do it? So with some of these large models right now you can't, but over the weekend there were a few people who took the latest Facebook model, which has something like 65 billion parameters and performs on the same level as GPT-3, not GPT-4, but and they managed to make it work on a laptop. So yeah, I do think like this will get better, and you will be able to run some of these models yourself and train them yourself. And we see that, well, we've only talked about text today mostly, right? But like another huge advance recently was in image generation, right? And actually, in some ways, even more impressive. If you like, it's a bit more like magic if you think about it. But and Stable Diffusion, which is a company from London, they produced an open source model which you can now run even on your phone sometimes, and that is, of course, like really amazing. I don't see the reason why we won't see something like that with text as well, where we would be able to train them ourselves and to run them on kind of more normal machines. But that said, do you need to or not is a separate question, because I think like for me, like right now, yes, specialized models outperform these models. And we find that kind of the best performance we get is when we combine our specialized models with some of these models to do the more abstractive kind of summarizations or like writing these kind of tasks. But when you want something very specific analysis, let's say, then specialized models outperform. Or for example, even something like translation. Right now, translation engines outperform ChatGPT. But like, is it gonna be like that forever? I think probably not. I think they will catch up pretty quickly, and already like you don't see that much of a difference. They're still very, very competitive, and these models are just getting much, much better. So I think it will become kind of technology that like anyone can use very easily, and we need to kind of move on to new things and start find new edges for defensibility. And I think that's very normal in any technology company. Like technology over time commoditizes and becomes kind of more accessible to everyone, and that's normal. And you just find new things. And for me, like it's always about product execution. We've seen like 2 days ago there were 2 releases actually. There was GPT-4 that we spent a lot of time talking about, and actually like Google released a whole bunch of stuff in this stuff. And Google has in many ways like pioneered this whole, like what you showed earlier, transformers that came from Google, and that's the T in GPT is the transformer. So like all of these models, they're built on technology that came out of Google. Google has right now, I think, like one of the most performant models still, and they released an API around it and a lot of products around it, and no one even noticed because of ChatGPT, because they just out-executed them on product. I think it's not the technology per se, it's other things that start playing a role. And for me, that's really exciting, because I'm not myself a kind of data scientist, so yeah, I get excited about this stuff, but actually like what I really care about is, can we deliver value to our customers? So if we can do it through ChatGPT and not through our models, who cares? Like for me, the important thing is like, can we deliver value, and can we find new ways to deliver that value?
Okay, super interesting. I looked a bit at the time. I have one closing, slightly provocative question, and then the floor is yours. Maybe you think about questions already. I could ask them all day, so if you don't have any, my list is very long. Yeah, it informs our investment strategy, as you can imagine. I think it's super cutting edge what's happening right now. So the question is, being a little bit dystopian, what are your ethical concerns? Do you have one that you want to highlight? The floor is yours, and any of you.
I can start. Yeah. I think obviously with big technology changes, you need to adapt quickly, and ethically, and you can think this technology can do so many things. So if I speak cruelly, it's who's going to be useful and who's not going to be useful in a couple of years, and we see that inequalities are increasing more and more, and a tool like this which automatize a lot of say simple tasks, or even from simple to even more complicated tasks, but you need more and more experienced people to be able to add additional value to this. It asks question about how many people do we need to have the current productivity that we have currently, and so what will other people do if they don't work, and if they don't need to work. That I think it's not a problem for now, not in 5 years, maybe in 10 to 12 years, 10 to 20 years from now, it's probably going to be a societal problem that we're going to have to think about.
Very, very relevant. Any reaction or addition or?
I would agree that the key question is about how, if information is fully accessible to tomorrow, so you don't have to remember everything by heart. How do you get to the level of expertise and experience that you need to be to have the criticism to look at those outputs, and because you need experience. A human will be kept in the loop. Those systems don't understand at all what they are telling you. It's just playing with words. It's nice information, nicely formatted, but they don't really understand. So, and think about all those people who enter in young people who enter in the company, and it takes. I've been in the audit industry, and think about the young auditor up to being able to sign up the account of a large company. It takes years. And it's both learning information processes and getting experience to find the right risks. So if the experience is what matters, but information is free, how do we get to that level? That's a key. That's, I think, a key question. I think also maybe to add on the other side, I like to see not the empty glass, but the full glass. I think it's also an opportunity to reduce the exclusion between people, so it's more inclusive, because you can type in with making faults or not using the right grammar, it would understand you, and there are a lot of people who are not getting access to the information, but because they are not fluent in the language, they are foreign one, or they left school early. So I think it's a good way to reduce most of these gaps. Maybe there will be another population who would master those prompts and be up again to that. That's maybe the future of life and the history of human people. But
ethical concern. I'm thinking a bit about the broader societal or economic implications. I think many technologies like the internet are decentralizing. I think crypto is decentralizing. Yeah? I think AI has the potential to be centralizing, in the sense of it can go into a winner-takes-all situation. If you have, this is not a given. Yeah? I think we see like a lot of startups and a lot of use cases popping up, but I mean, Microsoft can maybe do many of these use cases also, yeah? And why not? If they have the early mover advantage, yeah? And if things improve, yeah? We already have big centralizing monopolies on the internet ecosystem, like Google. Yeah? What would this mean for us, as a society, when there's this one entity with the best AI that owns most of the use cases? It's something to think about. Yeah.
Okay, that's I think we can solve it today, all of these, but maybe a hand for our panel here, and then up for your questions, really. Thank you so much, guys. Any questions in the room? Yakun.
Yakun from Ventech speaking here. I have very little, let's say, not technique question at all. Something that echoes much better with the ethics part of the generative AI is that we have heard a lot in the news that young people in college or in high school, they're starting already using generative AI to do their essays or resolve problems. And also, I learned also during the chat with Philippe that nowadays with the new one of the new features of ChatGPT 4 is that we can take an image, and this image will recognize directly the mathematical problems and give the result to that problem. So, I mean, in the same time I feel lucky, but in the same time I feel kind of worried for the future generation. So my question is really, for the young generations in the future, will there be a talent structure shift in the future? And do they need to learn everything about more on data sciences, age 6, or what is the impact on the future of leadership?
Does Microsoft have an answer, or you? It's a tough one.
I think that they need to be well-educated people, understanding the field, the domain where they are working on, being pragmatic. That will be the skills for tomorrow, because those tools will allow you then to ask the right question and get the right answer and use it. So it's more about, more about the values of the people that will use the systems, I think. Then on exams, it's called cheating, so you can prevent people from, and it's already the case today, to use internet when they are doing an exam. So, but the tools can be used to train better, to understand the faults you are doing. Think about, again, people who are not fluent in writing, and then you could use GPT to generate text with faults and present to the people, and then find the faults. It could be fully automatic, very easy. Today you need a lot of people to think about it, to write it, to publish it somewhere. And I've seen in the press, I don't know if it's true, but there were more teachers using those solutions than students. So maybe they're also using it for, I don't know, you guess. But it relies, again, and it's the same in the enterprise and at school. It's what does it mean to teach? What does it mean to transmit something? What do you require at the end? Do you want to be the parrot knowing by heart, hundreds of pages, or do you want the one who, in a risky situation, has to make a quick decision and make your gut feeling and use what you heard or experience to make the right decision? I think the second is the best. So again, it's empty glass or empty or full glass, but there are a lot of opportunities. But we need to, of course, to be conscious that there could be, as with any technology, good and bad use of those technologies. So we'll be looking at being respectful on the way we use those. But there are plenty of things to do on education.
It almost gets philosophical to a certain degree. Any other questions? Jean?
Just read yesterday that Microsoft was restraining access to hardware. So I don't know how true it was reported by some journalists, restraining access to hardware for AI implementation and stuff. So do you guys see that potential strain on resources, hardware, electricity, as a temporary thing, or more as a key question for restraining usage and associated cost?
There is an exponential demand for getting access to the systems. We refuse some of them due to the responsible AI process, but still there are a lot of people asking to use it. There is a huge infrastructure, use CapEx to spend and time to deploy those solutions. And we know the geopolitics environment restricted also the capability for supplying the right electronics components. So I think we are doing a very good job in answering I think all of the requests up to now. And we are deploying in all the regions because, as I said, we want the data to be consistent in the region for regulatory purposes. So the teams are working like crazy to ensure that anyone can have the best experience and access those solutions today.
So I understand that you see it more as temporary than a broader question on, not every question needs an AI generated answer with lots of hardware and electricity.
Yeah, there may be a hype moment also where people ask, as I said, what's the capital of that country or things they know. So maybe there will be a reduction of those requests, but we are seeing an exponential use in professional use cases. It may reach a plateau, it may not, I don't know. I know that we've been working in the past, decade on making all these hardware and infrastructures and software components more efficient, and we are publishing it as open source. So I'm confident in the way the future would allow us to fulfill all the needs. And it's not only the AI models, it's the data platform, it's the security solutions, it's the whole package, I would say, that needs to be consumed, and the embedding old models or other models. It's an architecture. If you look at visual ChatGPT, for example, on the web, you'll see an open sourced example from Microsoft Teams using a bunch of open source model together linked with the ChatGPT solution to be able to do a multimodal experience. Like this is a picture of a bike. What's the color of the bike? Remove the bike from the picture and then put a car in and that's using all the models. So we need all those services. So it's not only the AI infrastructure; it's the whole. We are analyzing something like 65,000 billions of security signals daily, for example, and AI is part of that shield, I would say.
Any other questions in the room? Yeah.
Is there a difference between, say, OpenAI GPT and Microsoft GPT?
So the model is an OpenAI model. So they are the owners and the creators of the models. We are working with them and putting that technology, security, compliance, and privacy and responsibility on top of it to run those models. So in Microsoft Cloud, it's the Azure OpenAI service who is running using the OpenAI model. So the OpenAI model is the same. But for example, we are applying filtering, or we are applying responsible AI changes to the prompts. If you look at the experience on the OpenAI website and you do the same in Bing, for example, you wouldn't get exactly the same answers because we are adding that layer of protection, I would say, and scrutiny on the. So that's an example of what we are adding. But the model by itself is the same. And it's not modified at all. So any information you are putting in the Microsoft Cloud is your data. It's not used for training the model. It's not screened by anyone. So it's really the model doesn't change up to OpenAI releasing a new version and us making the engineering work on top of it to ensure that we can run that model safely. That's why there is a bit of delay, a very short delay, but between the announcement of OpenAI and you'll see also more and more Microsoft models because we used to do it and we are still. We released the Cosmos one, which is a multimodal model. We released the Florence with a vision model. So there will be a combination of, depending on your use cases, models to be used.
Great. I think we're perfectly in time. Anyone who demands a question, then this is the last chance. Or you, yeah?
Going back to Awad's final comment on the monopolistic position of OpenAI, are we aware of any other credible solution that is being developed, either in the US or maybe in Europe? Or maybe France, why not?
I think in Germany there's one company that's much smaller, Aleph Alpha, that is also trying to basically be the German OpenAI. And Michael mentioned Google. Maybe you want to complement a bit your answer there, because they have a competitor indeed.
Yeah. So Google is one of the definitely a competitor, and they have this model called Palm, which I think was on one of the slides, which they I think released an API for a couple of days ago. Again, no one noticed. But yeah, there are also other companies in the world doing the stuff. So in the US, they have companies like Anthropic, which I think was some former OpenAI people, and they also have a chatbot which you can use through an app called Poe, and it's pretty competitive, pretty good, I would say. There is a company called Cohere, which does something very similar, and I think here in France you have a company called Hugging Face, which does a lot of stuff around AI generally, and they actually released a model last year called Bloom, which was also like not as good, but open. Truly open, not in a way OpenAI is open. And I'm sure they will do more of that stuff as well over time. So yeah, there's a lot of competition as well. But like I said earlier, I think like OpenAI just out-executed everyone right now in terms of delivering that product to the market. It's not even the technology behind it. It's more kind of how they made it accessible to everyone.
And maybe one last comment on that. I think that like in software, there are two paths. There's the open source part, or the freely licensable, usable part, and then there's the more I say fenced models, right? Like OpenAI. So we've seen that in images already. In text, I think it's not at the same level, but let's see. I mean, time will tell if someone will come up with something that is freely available to anyone.
Well, that Facebook model I mentioned earlier was released and actually leaked into the internet, and so people are running it. So yeah, it's not truly open source,
but not
actually,
licensed probably.
But the code is there. The code is published by Facebook themselves, and then yeah, you can't license it, but people are still using it.
And remember that the model by itself is like an engine for a car. So it's cool to buy an engine, and you can, but then you need to make some engineering to get the whole car and the 5-star crash security tests and the airbag in the car. So it's an engineering, and I think the OpenAI model is not technically it's not very new, but the engineering is great, and I think that's what makes the full difference.
Great. Thank you, Rudy, for that question. I think that was sorry. What was that question? Okay, well, good. No. Well, thank you very much to all of you for coming to that esteemed panel. I really appreciate all of your insights. Super cool. And hopefully see you all next year when we do this again and on a new topic.
Thanks.